I stand in the glass conference room facing CEO Bradley Hutchinson and 12 colleagues after requesting my overdue performance bonus of $25,000. Bradley leans back in his leather chair, smirking as he delivers the crushing blow. "Be happy you're still paid, Fanny. Don't push your luck." The room falls silent. I feel heat rising in my cheeks as snickers echo around the table. I nod quietly, excuse myself, and walk to my office. Nobody knows I'm about to make the call that will destroy everything Bradley built. My hands trembled as I closed my office door behind me, the echo of Bradley's dismissive laughter still ringing in my ears. The fluorescent lights above seemed harsher now, casting shadows across my desk, where I'd spent countless late nights building campaigns that transformed Innovate Tech Solutions from a struggling startup into a powerhouse in the marketing automation space. 18 months ago felt like a lifetime. Bradley had personally courted me away from TechFlow Corp, painting vivid pictures of rapid growth and unlimited potential. His enthusiasm was infectious as he described equity options, performance-based bonuses, and a culture where hard work truly mattered. I'd walked away from a secure position because his vision sparked something in me that had been dormant for years. That vision had manifested into tangible results that exceeded every projection. The customer acquisition campaign I spearheaded increased our client base by 68% in just 14 months. 3 major product launches under my direction generated $2.4 million in new revenue streams. The metrics spoke volumes about my contribution, yet here I sat, publicly humiliated for asking about compensation I'd legitimately earned. Jake Morrison occupied the cubicle adjacent to mine, his finance background making him the unofficial calculator for our department's achievements. His usually cheerful demeanor had grown increasingly strained over recent weeks, and I finally understood why when he approached my desk that afternoon. "That was brutal in there," he whispered, glancing toward Bradley's corner office. "I've been meaning to talk to someone about this, but after what just happened..." He paused, running fingers through his auburn hair. "They owe me $15,000 from my quarterly performance review. Every time I ask Patricia in HR, she gives me the runaround about budget approvals and processing delays." The revelation hit me like cold water. My situation wasn't isolated incompetence or oversight. Jake had consistently exceeded his targets, streamlining our financial processes and identifying cost-saving opportunities that improved our profit margins by 12%. His bonus wasn't charity, it was earned compensation. Sarah Brennan materialized at my desk 20 minutes later, her operations expertise making her indispensable to our daily functions. Her typically composed expression carried unusual tension as she lowered her voice to barely above a whisper. "I couldn't help overhearing your conversation with Jake," she began, her dark eyes scanning the office to ensure privacy. "My annual performance bonus is $32,000 overdue. When I scheduled a meeting with Bradley last month, he canceled 3 times before finally telling me that discretionary bonuses were under review due to market conditions." The pieces began forming an unsettling picture. Sarah had orchestrated our most successful operational overhaul, reducing client onboarding time by 43%, while maintaining quality standards that earned industry recognition. Her contributions weren't subjective. They were measurable improvements that directly impacted our bottom line. As the afternoon progressed, discreet conversations revealed the scope of our collective situation. Kevin Brooks from sales disclosed missing commission bonuses totaling $28,000. Maria Torres in software development had been waiting 4 months for her project completion bonus of $12,000. Tom Fletcher from customer success was owed $19,000 from his retention metrics achievement. I meticulously documented each revelation in my personal notebook, the numbers painting a disturbing pattern. 6 senior staff members were collectively owed $190,000 in performance-based compensation. These weren't requests for favors or advances. These were contractually obligated payments for documented achievements. The mathematics didn't support Bradley's casual dismissal of financial constraints. Our recent quarterly report boasted record revenue growth and expanding profit margins. Client retention rates exceeded industry averages, and our pipeline showed consistent upward momentum. The company wasn't struggling. Someone was making deliberate decisions about withholding earned compensation. My evening commute provided time for reflection, but sleep eluded me as questions multiplied. Why were specific employees being denied their bonuses while others received prompt payment? What criteria determined who deserved their earned compensation and who should be happy they're still paid? The randomness of it suggested something more calculated than budget constraints. The next morning brought an unexpected revelation that transformed my growing suspicions into stark reality. Jake arrived early, his usual coffee ritual replaced by urgent excitement as he pulled up Bradley's Instagram feed on his phone. "Look at this," he whispered, angling the screen toward me. The post from 2 days ago showed Bradley standing beside a pristine white Tesla Model S, his grin wide as he posed with his wife Lisa. The caption read, "Blessed life, blessed family, blessed opportunities. When you work hard, the universe rewards you." The irony was suffocating. While Bradley publicly celebrated his material success, 6 of his employees were being denied nearly $200,000 in earned bonuses. The Tesla's base price started at $94,000, representing more than 3 times Jake's overdue compensation. Bradley wasn't struggling financially. He was thriving while withholding his employees' earned money. The post's comments revealed additional insights into Bradley's lifestyle. Recent vacation photos from Hawaii, dinner reservations at exclusive restaurants, and shopping expeditions with designer purchases painted the picture of someone enjoying significant disposable income. Meanwhile, Sarah had mentioned struggling to cover her mother's mounting medical expenses, and Jake had postponed his wedding planning due to financial uncertainty. Something beyond poor cash flow management was happening at Innovate Tech Solutions. The selective denial of bonuses combined with Bradley's obvious prosperity suggested a deliberate strategy that prioritized executive comfort over employee compensation. The public humiliation I'd endured wasn't just unprofessional behavior, it was calculated intimidation, designed to discourage further questions. As I stared at Bradley's social media celebration of his blessed opportunities, a cold realization settled over me. We weren't dealing with temporary budget constraints or processing delays. We were confronting systematic withholding of earned compensation by someone who was simultaneously funding his luxury lifestyle. The question was no longer whether we deserved our bonuses. It was whether Bradley was stealing money that rightfully belonged to his employees. Sleep had become a foreign concept as I spent the night researching employment law and contractual obligations. Federal wage and hour regulations were clear about earned compensation, and our performance bonus agreements contained specific language about payment timelines and conditions. Bradley's casual dismissal violated both legal standards and basic professional ethics. My laptop screen glowed at 3 a.m. as I downloaded every document related to my employment agreement. The performance metrics were unambiguous: achieve specific targets, receive corresponding bonuses. I had exceeded every benchmark by substantial margins, yet compensation remained mysteriously delayed while Bradley showcased his financial success on social media. Patricia Winters, our Human Resources Director, represented my first formal attempt at resolution. Her corner office reflected corporate professionalism, with motivational posters about teamwork and integrity adorning walls that would soon witness my growing frustration. Patricia's smile seemed practiced as I explained my concerns about overdue performance bonuses. "Budget constraints are affecting everyone," she explained, her tone suggesting this conversation was routine. "We're reassessing all bonus structures to ensure sustainable growth. These delays are temporary while leadership evaluates our compensation framework." Her explanation contradicted everything I knew about our financial performance. Recent client acquisitions had generated substantial revenue increases, and our overhead costs remained stable. The disconnect between her claims and observable reality raised additional questions about transparency within our organization. Could you provide documentation showing my bonus agreement and the specific timeline for payment? I asked, maintaining professional composure despite my mounting frustration. Patricia's expression shifted almost imperceptibly as she turned toward her computer screen. Our systems are currently being updated to integrate with new financial software. All employee agreements are temporarily unavailable while IT completes the migration process. The convenience of this explanation seemed suspicious, particularly given that Jake had accessed his employment documents just 2 weeks earlier. Technology doesn't selectively malfunction based on the sensitivity of requested information, yet Patricia's deflection suggested deliberate obstruction rather than technical difficulties. Lunch with Amanda Foster provided the breakthrough I hadn't expected. My former colleague had left Innovate Tech 6 months ago for a position with better advancement opportunities, and her perspective carried the clarity of someone no longer dependent on Bradley's approval. "You're not going crazy," Amanda confirmed over salads at the cafe 3 blocks from our office. My exit bonus of $18,000 never materialized despite multiple follow-up attempts. Patricia kept promising it would be processed with my final paycheck, then claimed HR needed additional documentation, then said the finance department required approval from Bradley himself. Amanda's experience validated my suspicions while revealing the scope of this issue extended beyond current employees. Her technical writing expertise had streamlined our client documentation process, creating efficiency improvements that continued benefiting the company months after her departure. The bonus wasn't goodwill. It was contractually obligated compensation for documented achievements. "There's something else you should know," Amanda continued, her voice dropping as she glanced around the restaurant. "Bradley has been funneling money through fake consulting arrangements. My friend Rachel works at the bank where Innovate Tech processes payments, and she mentioned unusual transaction patterns involving a company called Strategic Solutions. The revelation hit like electricity through my nervous system. Financial irregularities suggested deliberate manipulation rather than cash flow problems or budget constraints. If Bradley was creating fraudulent transactions to redirect company funds, our missing bonuses represented theft rather than delayed payment. Jake's cooperation proved essential when I explained Amanda's revelations. His access to our financial systems could provide the evidence needed to understand what was happening with our compensation. His initial reluctance dissolved when I described the pattern affecting multiple employees and the potential legal implications of systematic wage theft. "If what you're suggesting is true, we're not just dealing with late payments," Jake reasoned as we reviewed his computer screen after hours. "This could be criminal fraud, and we have a responsibility to document everything before confronting anyone directly." The financial records Jake accessed painted a shocking picture of deliberate deception. Strategic Solutions LLC appeared in our vendor payments beginning 8 months ago, receiving substantial consulting fees for undefined services. The payments totaled $215,000, almost exactly matching the amount owed to employees in performance bonuses. Cross-referencing the business registration database revealed Strategic Solutions LLC was owned by Lisa Hutchinson, Bradley's wife. The company had no website, no business address beyond a post office box, and no apparent employees besides Lisa herself. Invoice descriptions were deliberately vague. Strategic consulting services, business development analysis, and market research initiatives. The money trail became clear as Jake pulled up corresponding bank records through our accounting software. Strategic Solutions payments consistently preceded Bradley's mortgage payments, luxury purchases, and vacation expenses. Company funds designated for employee compensation were being laundered through his wife's phantom consulting business to fund their personal lifestyle. Email records obtained through Jake's administrative access provided additional evidence of coordination between Bradley and Lisa. Messages discussed timing payments to coincide with their personal financial obligations, with Lisa confirming receipt of consulting fees that corresponded exactly with Strategic Solutions invoices. One particularly damning exchange from 6 weeks ago showed Bradley instructing Lisa to submit an invoice for $37,000 immediately after receiving notice that several employees were questioning their overdue bonuses. The timing suggested calculated theft designed to coincide with employee compensation obligation. The scope of the fraud extended beyond simple embezzlement. Bradley had created a systematic method for redirecting earned employee compensation to fund his personal expenses while maintaining plausible deniability through the fake vendor arrangements. Our missing bonuses weren't delayed. They had been stolen and laundered through his wife's fraudulent consulting business. As I stared at the evidence sprawled across Jake's computer screen, the magnitude of Bradley's betrayal became overwhelming. This wasn't poor financial management or temporary cash flow problems. This was calculated theft from employees who had trusted him with their careers and financial security. The public humiliation I'd endured was designed to discourage exactly this type of investigation. The realization that our missing compensation was funding Bradley's Tesla Hawaiian vacations and luxury lifestyle created a burning sense of injustice that transcended personal grievance. Sarah was struggling with her mother's medical expenses while Bradley used her earned bonus money for restaurant dinners. Jake had postponed his wedding while Bradley purchased designer accessories with funds that rightfully belonged in Jake's bank account. We weren't dealing with a cash-strapped startup making difficult budget decisions. We were confronting a criminal enterprise masquerading as legitimate business operations, with Bradley stealing nearly $200,000 from his employees to maintain his affluent lifestyle. The question was no longer whether we deserved our bonuses. It was whether we had the courage to expose a criminal who was counting on our silence. My apartment had transformed into a makeshift investigation center, with encrypted folders organizing financial documents, email screenshots, and employment agreements that painted an increasingly criminal picture. The weight of what we'd discovered demanded careful documentation before taking any irreversible steps. Creating multiple backup copies of every piece of evidence became my obsession. USB drives hidden in different locations, cloud storage accounts under pseudonyms, and printed copies secured in a bank safety deposit box ensured our findings couldn't be destroyed or suppressed. Bradley's position of power meant any confrontation required overwhelming documentation of his criminal activities. The parking garage meeting felt like something from a thriller movie, but our circumstances demanded extreme caution. Sarah arrived first, her operations background making her naturally systematic about security protocols. Jake followed 10 minutes later, carrying a laptop bag filled with additional financial records he'd retrieved during his authorized accesses to company systems. "This is bigger than we initially realized," Jake began, his voice echoing softly in the concrete structure. "The Strategic Solutions payments are just the beginning. Bradley has been manipulating financial reports to hide the true scope of his embezzlement." Sarah's discovery complemented Jake's findings with operational insights that revealed systematic deception. Her access to board meeting minutes showed Bradley consistently reporting lower operational costs while hiding the phantom consulting expenses from directors and investors. "He's been double booking expenses," Sarah explained, pulling up documents on her tablet. "Strategic Solutions payments appear in our internal books as legitimate consulting fees, but external reports to investors and board members categorize the same expenses under different line items that make our operational efficiency appear better than reality." The implications were staggering. Bradley wasn't just stealing employee bonuses, he was committing securities fraud by misrepresenting company finances to investors and board members. This elevated his crimes from employment law violations to federal offenses that could result in decades in prison. Jake's technical expertise allowed him to retrieve deleted email communications that Bradley assumed were permanently erased. The recovery process revealed months of coordination with Lisa about timing strategic solutions invoices to coincide with their personal financial needs. One particularly damning email thread from 4 months ago showed Bradley calculating exactly how much money he could divert from employee bonuses without triggering immediate complaints. His mathematical precision in determining stolen amounts demonstrated premeditation and deliberate intent rather than impulsive poor judgment. Look at this calculation. Jake pointed to an email attachment. He's literally budgeting stolen money, planning which employees to target based on their likelihood to complain publicly. He identified Sarah and you as potential whistleblowers, but decided the theft was worth the risk. Lisa's responses revealed her active participation in money laundering and tax fraud. She discussed creating false business records for strategic solutions, maintaining phantom employee documentation, and coordinating with their personal accountant to minimize tax liability on what they knew was stolen income. Sarah's revelation about investor presentations added another dimension to Bradley's criminal enterprise. During recent fundraising activities, he had presented financial statements showing operational costs 23% lower than actual expenses. This misrepresentation directly influenced investor decisions and violated federal securities regulations. The Series B funding round brought in $4.2 million based on deliberately false financial information, Sarah explained, referencing board meeting transcripts. Investors were told our operational efficiency exceeded industry standards, but Bradley achieved those numbers by hiding massive consulting expenses that were actually money laundering payments to his wife. Jake's access to external audit communications provided additional confirmation of systematic fraud. Email exchanges with accounting firm Hamilton Associates showed Bradley providing manipulated financial data that excluded strategic solutions payments from operational cost calculations. George Hamilton, the lead auditor, had unknowingly confirmed discrepancies in multiple email exchanges where he questioned expense categorizations that didn't align with industry standards. Bradley's responses consistently deflected specific questions while providing alternative explanations that satisfied surface-level scrutiny without revealing the underlying fraud. The Securities and Exchange Commission filing requirements created a paper trail of Bradley's federal crimes. Quarterly reports submitted to regulatory authorities contained financial statements that deliberately excluded or misrepresented strategic solutions payments, creating false impressions of company profitability and operational efficiency. Cross-referencing SEC filings with internal financial records revealed systematic pattern of misrepresentation spanning 8 months. Each quarterly report understated operational costs by amounts that corresponded exactly to strategic solutions payments, while simultaneously overstating profit margins and cash flow positions. The scope of evidence extended beyond financial records to include tax fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy charges. Bradley and Lisa had coordinated multiple federal crimes while stealing money from employees who trusted them with their financial security and career development. Email communications recovered from Bradley's deleted files showed discussions about expanding the strategic solutions scheme to include additional phantom vendors controlled by family members. Plans were underway to create consulting arrangements with Lisa's brother and Bradley's father, multiplying the money laundering operation, while increasing the amount stolen from employee compensation. The psychological impact of discovering Bradley's calculated betrayal was overwhelming. These weren't crimes of opportunity or momentary poor judgment. They represented systematic theft planned and executed over many months with deliberate precision. Every missed bonus payment had funded Bradley's luxury lifestyle, while employees struggled with legitimate financial obligations. Sarah's emotional response reflected the personal stakes involved for each targeted employee. Her mother's cancer treatment required consistent medical payments that Sarah's missing bonus would have covered comfortably. Instead, her earned compensation had purchased Bradley's designer accessories and restaurant meals while her family faced mounting medical debt. Jake's wedding postponement represented another human cost of Bradley's crimes. The financial uncertainty created by missing bonus payments forced Jake and his fiancée to delay marriage plans and compromise their future goals. Meanwhile, Bradley was using Jake's stolen money to fund Hawaiian vacations and luxury car purchases. The evidence was overwhelming, but the weight of responsibility for exposing federal crimes created anxiety about potential retaliation and legal complications. Bradley's position of power meant any confrontation could result in termination, blacklisting, or legal intimidation designed to suppress the truth about his criminal activities. However, the magnitude of his crimes and their impact on innocent employees demanded action, despite potential personal costs. Bradley was planning to expand his money laundering operations while denying earned compensation to additional employees who trusted him with their careers and financial security. The encrypted folders containing our evidence represented more than documentation. They were the foundation for seeking justice against someone who had weaponized his authority to steal from the people who made his company successful. Bradley's confidence in his ability to intimidate employees into silence was about to encounter the reality of federal law enforcement and employee protection statutes. Employment attorney David Reynolds specialized in cases involving executive misconduct and wage theft, his downtown office reflecting the success that came from holding powerful people accountable for their crimes. His initial consultation confirmed that our evidence exceeded the threshold for multiple federal violations while providing grounds for substantial civil damages. What you've documented represents systematic criminal activity spanning multiple federal jurisdictions, David explained, reviewing printed copies of our evidence. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and violation of federal wage and hour laws. This isn't a simple employment dispute. This is organized criminal activity. The legal protection available to whistleblowers provided crucial reassurance about potential retaliation. Federal statutes specifically prohibited employer retaliation against employees reporting securities violations or financial crimes, with substantial penalties for companies that attempted to intimidate or terminate whistleblowing employees. Maria Torres joined our growing coalition after David confirmed that our evidence was sufficient to protect additional witnesses from retaliation. Her software development expertise provided technical capabilities for securely copying digital evidence without leaving traces that could alert Bradley to our investigation. The database access logs show normal usage patterns, Maria explained during our second parking garage meeting. I've created automated scripts that will extract relevant files during regular business hours when my access appears routine. Bradley won't know we've copied anything until we decide to reveal our investigation. Kevin Brooks represented a crucial addition because his sales role required direct interaction with investors and board members. His access to investor communications revealed the scope of Bradley's misrepresentation about company finances and operational efficiency. The pitch decks I've been using contain deliberately false information about our cost structure. Kevin disclosed his usual confidence replaced by obvious concern about unwitting participation in securities fraud. Bradley personally approved slides showing operational costs that exclude strategic solutions payments entirely. Kevin's moral struggle reflected the ethical complexity facing employees who discovered they had unknowingly participated in criminal activity. His sales presentations to investors contained financial projections that Bradley knew were based on fraudulent accounting, making Kevin an unwitting participant in securities fraud. However, David's legal guidance confirmed that Kevin's cooperation as a witness would provide immunity from prosecution while strengthening the case against Bradley. Federal prosecutors prioritized executive accountability over employee participation, when circumstances clearly showed manipulation and deception by authority figures. The investigation's expanding scope required coordination to prevent Bradley from detecting our activities. Maria's technical skills ensured our digital evidence gathering remained undetectable, while Kevin's access to investor relations provided insight into the external impact of Bradley's fraudulent reporting. Patricia Winter's accidentally forwarded email provided the breakthrough that transformed our investigation from evidence gathering to urgent intervention. The message intended for Bradley's personal assistant contained the agenda for an emergency board meeting scheduled for the following Friday. Necessary workforce reduction of 35% due to market pressures and operational inefficiencies. Read the agenda item that sent shockwaves through our group. Bradley wasn't just stealing employee bonuses, he was planning mass layoffs to eliminate his obligation to pay stolen compensation. The psychological impact of discovering Bradley's termination strategy created urgency that transcended our personal grievances. 35% workforce reduction would affect approximately 28 employees, many of whom had families depending on their income and benefits for basic necessities. Sarah's analysis of the proposed layoffs revealed the systematic targeting of employees owed performance bonuses. Every member of our investigation group appeared on the preliminary termination list, along with other employees who had questioned missing compensation or expressed concerns about financial transparency. He's not reducing workforce due to economic necessity, Sarah concluded, reviewing the termination criteria. He's eliminating employees who represent potential witnesses to his criminal activity while avoiding payment obligations through wrongful termination. The termination timeline coincided suspiciously with our evidence-gathering activities. Bradley's decision to accelerate layoffs suggested possible awareness of our investigation, though Maria's technical monitoring showed no unusual access to our secure communications or evidence files. Jake's discovery of Bradley's internal memo to Patricia provided additional confirmation of calculated retaliation disguised as economic necessity. The memo instructed HR to document performance issues for targeted employees to justify termination without severance payments or bonus obligations. Prepare documentation showing performance deficiencies for the attached employee list, the memo instructed. Focus on subjective metrics that support termination for cause rather than economic reasons. This approach will minimize severance obligations and eliminate outstanding bonus disputes. The legal implications of Bradley's termination strategy extended his criminal exposure to include retaliation against potential witnesses and wrongful termination to avoid contractual obligations. David confirmed that these actions would result in additional federal charges while increasing civil damage calculations substantially. Personal stakes intensified as each group member confronted the reality of losing employment while being denied earned compensation. Sarah's mother required consistent medical care that depended on health insurance benefits that would terminate with her employment. Jake's financial planning for marriage and home ownership required the stability that Bradley was planning to destroy. Maria's student loan obligations and Kevin's mortgage payments created additional pressure that Bradley was exploiting through calculated timing of his termination strategy. He had identified employees' financial vulnerabilities and was using layoffs as weapons to prevent exposure of his criminal activities. The psychological manipulation embedded in Bradley's approach revealed sophisticated understanding of employee psychology and financial pressure. He was counting on terminated employees being too preoccupied with job searching and financial survival to pursue legal action against his crimes. Bradley's luxury office furniture order provided the final insult that crystallized our determination to seek justice. While planning to destroy 28 employees' livelihoods, he had authorized $47,000 in office renovations, including a custom executive desk, imported leather furniture, and designer lighting fixtures. The furniture invoice discovered through Maria's database access showed delivery scheduled for the week following planned layoffs. Bradley intended to celebrate eliminating potential witnesses to his crimes by redecorating his office with stolen employee compensation money. The moral clarity was overwhelming. Bradley had systematically stolen nearly $200,000 from employees who trusted him, manipulated financial reports to defraud investors, and planned mass layoffs to eliminate evidence of his criminal activity. Meanwhile, he was funding luxury purchases and office renovations with money that rightfully belonged to people facing unemployment and financial devastation. Our investigation had revealed criminal enterprise masquerading as legitimate business operations, with Bradley as the architect of systematic theft and fraud that violated multiple federal laws. The evidence was comprehensive, the legal framework was clear, and the moral imperative was undeniable. The phone call to federal authorities would transform our investigation from documentation to law enforcement action, but the magnitude of Bradley's crimes and their impact on innocent employees demanded intervention before additional people suffered financial harm through his calculated criminal activities. Bradley's confidence in his ability to intimidate employees into silence was about to encounter the reality of federal investigation and criminal prosecution. The same authority he had weaponized against his employees would soon be turned against him by agencies specifically designed to hold powerful people accountable for their crimes. The phone number for the SEC Enforcement Division had been stored in my contacts for 3 days before I found the courage to dial. Tuesday morning at 8:15, I sat in my car outside a coffee shop 6 miles from the office, hands trembling as I pressed the numbers that would irrevocably change everything. Securities and Exchange Commission Enforcement Division. This is Special Agent Rachel Morrison, came the professional voice that would soon become my lifeline through the chaos ahead. My name is Fanny Richardson, and I need to report systematic securities fraud and money laundering at Innovate Tech Solutions. I began my voice steadier than I felt. I have extensive documentation showing fraudulent financial reporting to investors and theft of employee compensation. Agent Morrison's tone shifted immediately from routine to intense focus. Miss Richardson, I'm going to transfer you to a secure line and begin recording this conversation. What you're describing falls under multiple federal jurisdictions and will need comprehensive documentation of your allegations. The next hour felt surreal as I methodically presented 8 months of evidence to a federal investigator who understood the legal implications better than I could have imagined. Bank records, email communications, fraudulent SEC filings, and investor misrepresentation painted a picture of organized criminal activity that exceeded the threshold for multiple felony charges. The evidence you're describing suggests violations of federal securities law, wire fraud statutes, and money laundering regulations, Agent Morrison explained. We'll need to secure all digital evidence immediately to prevent destruction, and I'm initiating a formal investigation effective immediately. The comprehensive evidence package submission required coordinating with Maria's technical expertise to ensure proper chain of custody for digital files. Every email, financial record, and document needed authentication that would withstand scrutiny in federal court proceedings. Within 48 hours, the SEC's investigation machinery focused on Innovate Tech Solutions with precision that surprised even David, our attorney. Federal investigators possessed resources and authority that transformed our employee grievance into criminal prosecution with shocking efficiency. Bradley received official notification of the SEC inquiry during what he had planned as his triumphant board meeting to announce workforce reductions. The timing couldn't have been more perfect as federal investigators served document preservation notices while he attempted to present his cost-cutting strategy. The conference room that had witnessed my humiliation became the stage for Bradley's initial confrontation with accountability. Board members who had trusted his financial representations suddenly faced questions about their own liability for approving actions based on fraudulent information. We've received notice of a federal investigation into our financial reporting practices. Bradley announced to the board, his usual confidence replaced by visible anxiety. Someone has made allegations about our accounting procedures, and we need to cooperate fully with investigators. His attempt to characterize federal criminal investigation as allegations about accounting procedures revealed his desperation to maintain control of the narrative. However, board members possessed enough experience to understand that SEC enforcement actions weren't triggered by minor bookkeeping disputes. The emergency session with senior staff provided my first opportunity to observe Bradley's psychological deterioration. His attempts to identify the whistleblower created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia that exposed his fundamental lack of leadership integrity. "Someone in this room has made a terrible mistake," Bradley declared, his eyes scanning faces for signs of guilt or deception. "These investigators have been given false information that could destroy everything we've built together." The irony was palpable as Bradley accused unknown employees of providing false information while sitting 20 feet from evidence of his systematic fraud and theft. His desperation to find a scapegoat revealed his understanding that someone possessed comprehensive documentation of his criminal activities. Jake's composure impressed me as Bradley's accusations grew more specific and threatening. The financial manager who had provided crucial evidence maintained perfect professionalism, while the person who had stolen his bonus money attempted to intimidate him into silence. Sarah's calm responses to Bradley's probing questions demonstrated remarkable courage under pressure. The operations director, whose earned compensation had funded Bradley's luxury purchases, refused to be intimidated by his increasingly desperate attempts to identify potential witnesses. Board member Patricia Donnelly's questions revealed sophisticated understanding of securities law and fiduciary responsibility. Her background as former SEC enforcement attorney positioned her to understand the severity of federal investigation and potential criminal liability for executive misconduct. "Bradley, I need you to understand that SEC enforcement investigations aren't fishing expeditions," Patricia stated firmly. "They have specific evidence of potential violations, and our cooperation isn't optional. Any attempt to obstruct their investigation will result in additional federal charges." Lisa's panic response to the investigation provided additional confirmation of her active participation in money laundering activities. Her frantic attempts to transfer money from Strategic Solutions LLC accounts triggered automatic alerts that federal investigators had anticipated. Banking regulations required immediate reporting of unusual transaction patterns during active federal investigations. Lisa's attempts to move laundered money created additional evidence while demonstrating consciousness of guilt that would strengthen prosecution arguments. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit's arrival at our office transformed the investigation from regulatory inquiry to criminal prosecution. Federal agents executing search warrants created an atmosphere of accountability that Bradley had never experienced during his reign of unchecked authority. "Mr. Hutchinson, you are receiving federal grand jury subpoena for all financial records related to Strategic Solutions LLC and corresponding business transactions," announced Special Agent David Chen as he personally served legal documents in front of assembled staff members. Bradley's attempt to maintain dignity while being served with federal criminal investigation notices created a spectacle that employees would remember for years. The man who had publicly humiliated me for requesting earned compensation was now facing potential federal prison time for stealing that same compensation. The psychological transformation was remarkable, as Bradley's confident demeanor crumbled under the weight of federal scrutiny. His understanding that someone possessed comprehensive evidence of his criminal activities created paranoia and desperation that affected his judgment and decision-making capabilities. Federal agents' presence in the office created an atmosphere of justice that transcended personal satisfaction. Employees who had been intimidated into silence by Bradley's authority witnessed accountability arriving in the form of federal law enforcement with resources and determination to pursue criminal prosecution. The seizure of Bradley's computers, financial records, and communication devices provided investigators with additional evidence while preventing destruction of materials that could document the full scope of his criminal enterprise. Federal search warrants ensured comprehensive evidence preservation beyond what our employee investigation had accomplished. As I watched federal agents methodically catalog evidence of Bradley's crimes, the magnitude of what we had accomplished began to register. The phone call that I had delayed for days out of fear and uncertainty had triggered a federal investigation that would hold a powerful person accountable for systematic theft and fraud. Bradley's world was crumbling with the same precision he had applied to stealing employee compensation, but this time federal authority was working against him rather than enabling his criminal activities. The confidence he had displayed while denying earned bonuses to struggling employees was being systematically destroyed by investigators who possessed resources and determination he had never encountered. Federal agents arrived at Innovate Tech Solutions before sunrise on Thursday morning, their search warrant granting access to every computer, filing cabinet, and communication device that might contain evidence of Bradley's criminal enterprise. Watching armed investigators methodically dismantle the infrastructure of his fraud felt like witnessing justice arrive with precision and authority. The search warrant's scope encompassed Bradley's office computer systems, financial records, and personal devices used for business communications. Federal investigators possessed technological resources that exceeded anything our employee investigation could have accomplished, ensuring comprehensive evidence recovery that would withstand criminal prosecution standards. Bradley's suspension from all corporate responsibilities became effective immediately as board members recognized their fiduciary duty to distance the company from ongoing criminal investigation. His access to company systems, financial accounts, and business communications was terminated while federal agents continued their methodical evidence collection. Security escort services removed Bradley from the building while employees watched through conference room windows. The man who had wielded absolute authority over our careers and financial security was reduced to gathering personal belongings under federal supervision before being permanently excluded from the company he had used for criminal activities. Interim CEO Linda Patterson brought 47 years of corporate leadership experience and an impeccable reputation for ethical business practices. Her first priority involved implementing transparency measures and employee protection protocols while cooperating fully with ongoing federal investigation. Everyone in this company deserves honesty about what has happened and what we're doing to address it, Linda announced during her first all-hands meeting. We will cooperate completely with federal investigators while ensuring that innocent employees are protected from any retaliation or discrimination. Federal whistleblower protection statutes provided comprehensive legal safeguards against retaliation while guaranteeing employment security during the investigation and prosecution phases. Our cooperation with federal authorities created protected status that prevented termination, demotion, or harassment related to our role in exposing Bradley's crimes. Criminal charges filed by federal prosecutors exceeded the scope of what I had initially imagined possible. Wire fraud, securities, fraud conspiracy, money laundering, and embezzlement charges carried potential sentences totaling 47 years in federal prison if convicted on all counts. The indictment's detail revealed the sophistication of federal investigation and prosecutors' confidence in securing conviction. Every strategic solutions payment, fraudulent SEC filing, and stolen employee bonus was documented with precision that left little room for legal defense or plea negotiation. Media coverage began modestly but escalated rapidly as journalists recognized the human interest elements embedded in the story. Tech CEO accused of stealing employee bonuses for luxury lifestyle. became a headline that resonated with working professionals who understood the betrayal involved in executive theft. Local television news interviewed employees willing to share their experiences, creating public awareness of systematic wage theft while generating pressure for criminal prosecution and civil accountability. Bradley's public image transformed from successful entrepreneur to cautionary tale about unchecked corporate power. Asset forfeiture proceedings froze Bradley's personal wealth, while ensuring restitution funds would be available for victim compensation. His house, vehicles, investment accounts, and luxury purchases became property of federal investigation, pending criminal trial and civil judgment resolution. The Tesla Model S that he had celebrated on social media became evidence in criminal proceedings while symbolizing the personal costs of his theft from struggling employees. Federal marshals' seizure of his assets created poetic justice that resonated with employees who had been denied earned compensation. My formal commendation from the SEC for courage in reporting securities fraud provided validation that transcended personal satisfaction. Federal recognition confirmed that speaking truth to power required exceptional bravery while serving essential purposes in maintaining financial market integrity. Ms. Richardson's willingness to report complex financial crimes prevented additional investor harm while protecting employee rights, Agent Morrison stated in the official commendation. Her comprehensive evidence gathering and cooperation with federal investigation exemplify the civic responsibility that makes financial crime enforcement possible. The personal transformation I experienced through confronting powerful authority figures exceeded anything I had anticipated when making that initial phone call. Discovering inner strength and moral courage created confidence that extended beyond workplace situations into every aspect of my personal and professional development. Colleagues' gratitude for my willingness to risk personal security to expose criminal activity created bonds that transcended typical workplace relationships. People who had been intimidated into silence by Bradley's authority expressed appreciation for someone finally having the courage to seek justice on their behalf. Company culture began healing under Linda's ethical leadership as transparency replaced secrecy and employee welfare became prioritized over executive privilege. The toxic environment that Bradley had created through intimidation and theft was systematically replaced with professional standards that respected employee contributions and dignity. New contract acquisitions worth $8.4 million demonstrated that ethical leadership enhanced rather than hindered business success. Clients who had been concerned about corporate governance issues became enthusiastic supporters when assured that new management prioritized integrity and accountability. The legal proceedings moved forward with efficiency that surprised everyone familiar with federal criminal prosecution timelines. Prosecutors possessed overwhelming evidence, while Bradley's legal defense struggled to develop strategies for addressing comprehensive documentation of systematic criminal activity. Plea bargain negotiations revealed prosecutors' confidence in securing conviction through trial proceedings if necessary. Bradley's attempts to negotiate reduced charges were consistently rejected due to the scope of his crimes and the impact on multiple victims, including employees, investors, and business partners. Lisa's cooperation with federal investigation provided additional evidence while securing probation rather than prison time for her role in money laundering activities. Her testimony about strategic solutions operations filled gaps in the evidence while demonstrating the coordinated nature of the criminal conspiracy. Patricia Winter's termination for complicity in covering up wage theft violations created opportunity for hiring ethical HR leadership committed to protecting employee rights rather than enabling executive misconduct. Her replacement implemented policies ensuring transparent bonus administration and complaint resolution procedures. The psychological satisfaction of witnessing accountability extended beyond personal vindication to encompass broader principles about justice and integrity in professional relationships. Bradley's prosecution, demonstrated that powerful positions don't provide immunity from criminal consequences when those positions are used to exploit and steal from employees. Federal investigation had revealed criminal enterprise masquerading as legitimate business leadership with systematic theft and fraud affecting multiple victims over extended periods. The scope of Bradley's crimes exceeded simple employment law violations to encompass federal offenses that threatened financial market integrity and investor confidence. Bradley's attempt to characterize federal criminal charges as workplace disputes or misunderstandings revealed his continuing inability to accept responsibility for deliberate criminal behavior. His legal strategy focused on minimizing rather than acknowledging the impact of his systematic theft and fraud on innocent victims. The efficiency of federal prosecution demonstrated the effectiveness of whistleblower protection statutes and enforcement mechanisms designed to encourage reporting of financial crimes. My initial fears about retaliation and legal complications proved unfounded as federal authorities provided comprehensive protection while pursuing criminal accountability. As preliminary hearings began, the reality of Bradley's situation became undeniable. Federal prosecutors possessed evidence, resources, and determination to secure conviction while ensuring victim restitution and preventing future criminal activity. The man who had stolen employee bonuses to fund his luxury lifestyle was facing decades in federal prison for his systematic criminal behavior. 6 months after my initial phone call to federal authorities, Judge Patricia Williams sentenced Bradley Hutchinson to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised probation and full restitution to all victims. The courtroom was packed with employees whose lives had been disrupted by his systematic theft, finally witnessing accountability for crimes that had caused genuine financial hardship. The restitution order totaled $312,000, including stolen bonuses, interest penalties, punitive damages, and legal costs associated with recovery efforts. Federal marshals had liquidated Bradley's assets methodically, ensuring every penny of victim compensation while demonstrating that criminal proceeds couldn't be hidden from determined investigators. My promotion to Vice President of Marketing came with a 40% salary increase, genuine equity participation, and authority to implement ethical practices throughout our department. Linda Patterson's leadership philosophy prioritized employee development and transparent communication, creating a professional environment where contributions were recognized and rewarded appropriately. The company thrived under ethical management as clients responded positively to our cultural transformation. Major contracts worth $8.4 million were secured through honest business practices and superior service delivery, proving that integrity enhanced rather than hindered commercial success. Personal reflection on the courage required for confronting authority revealed psychological growth that extended far beyond workplace situations. Speaking truth to power had demanded preparation, evidence, and support from others, willing to risk personal security for principles larger than individual comfort or convenience. The life lesson that emerged from this experience transcended simple employment disputes to encompass fundamental questions about dignity, integrity, and moral responsibility in professional relationships. Sometimes the most important battles aren't just about money, but about protecting others who lack resources or courage to protect themselves. My role as mentor to employees facing workplace injustice evolved naturally from personal experience with corporate crime and federal investigation. Speaking at industry conferences about whistleblower protection and employee rights provided opportunities to share practical knowledge while encouraging others to report criminal activities when they encountered systematic abuse. The deep friendships formed with colleagues who supported the investigation created bonds that transcended typical workplace relationships, shared experiences of confronting powerful authority figures and risking personal security for collective justice, established trust and mutual respect that continued long after legal proceedings concluded. Lisa Hutchinson's cooperation with federal investigation resulted in probation rather than prison time, but her volunteer work with financial literacy programs demonstrated genuine remorse for participation in money laundering activities. Her efforts to educate others about recognizing financial fraud created positive contributions that partially offset her role in enabling Bradley's crimes. Patricia Winter's termination for complicity in covering up wage theft created an opportunity for hiring Michelle Torres as Human Resources Director. Michelle's background in employment law and commitment to worker protection established policies ensuring transparent compensation administration and accessible complaint resolution procedures. The transparent bonus system implemented under Linda's leadership eliminated opportunities for executive manipulation while guaranteeing employees received earned compensation according to clear metrics and established timelines. Performance evaluations became objective processes based on documented achievements rather than subjective favoritism or personal relationships. Employee advocacy programs created channels for reporting concerns about financial irregularities, workplace safety violations, or discrimination without fear of retaliation. Anonymous reporting systems and external ombudsman services ensured that future problems would be addressed before escalating to criminal activity. The cultural transformation extended throughout the organization as ethical leadership established standards that prioritize employee welfare alongside business success. Open communication, transparent decision-making, and accountability at all levels created professional environment where people felt valued and respected rather than exploited or intimidated. Bradley's wife, Lisa, found employment as financial counselor with nonprofit organization, helping families avoid predatory lending and financial scams. Her insider knowledge of money laundering techniques proved valuable for educating others about recognizing fraudulent schemes while providing legitimate career path focused on prevention rather than enabling criminal activity. The psychological impact of witnessing justice extended beyond personal satisfaction to encompass broader understanding of institutional accountability and legal protection for employees willing to report criminal activities. Federal whistleblower statutes proved effective when supported by comprehensive evidence and professional legal guidance. My speaking engagements at conferences focused on practical aspects of reporting financial crimes while emphasizing the importance of preparation, documentation, and professional support throughout investigation and prosecution processes. Other employees facing similar situations needed realistic guidance about legal protection and potential challenges associated with confronting powerful authority figures. The industry recognition for ethical leadership helped establish Innovate Tech Solutions as exemplary company committed to employee welfare and transparent business practices. Our reputation attracted talented professionals who valued integrity alongside competitive compensation and advancement opportunities. Federal prosecutors' efficiency in securing conviction demonstrated the effectiveness of financial crime enforcement when victims possessed courage to report systematic abuse and provide evidence necessary for prosecution. The case became precedent for encouraging other employees to seek federal protection when confronting workplace crime. The moment of humiliation in that conference room had become the catalyst for discovering inner strength and moral courage I hadn't known existed. Bradley's dismissive attitude and public embarrassment inadvertently triggered investigation that revealed his extensive criminal activities while providing justice for multiple victims. The realization that silence enables criminal behavior created ongoing commitment to speaking out against injustice wherever it appears in professional or personal contexts. The experience taught me that confronting powerful people requires preparation and support, but remaining silent allows systematic abuse to continue, affecting additional innocent victims. Personal growth through this experience included understanding that temporary discomfort associated with challenging authority figures was minimal compared to long-term consequences of allowing criminal behavior to continue unchecked. The courage required for making that initial phone call seemed overwhelming at the time, but the results justified every moment of anxiety and uncertainty. The restoration of financial security for all affected employees provided tangible evidence that persistence and courage could overcome institutional injustice when supported by comprehensive legal framework and determined investigation. Everyone received their stolen compensation, plus additional damages, creating resources for achieving personal goals that Bradley's theft had temporarily prevented. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not argue back in the moment, but take action with evidence and courage. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but when you stand up for what's right, you discover inner strength that you never imagined possible. The phone call that terrified me for days became the foundation for personal transformation and professional success that exceeded anything I could have anticipated. The confidence gained through confronting and defeating criminal authority figure established foundation for continued advocacy and leadership in professional situations requiring moral courage and ethical decision-making. The experience proved that individual actions could create positive change affecting multiple people when supported by preparation, evidence, and determination to seek justice, regardless of personal costs. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to choose between staying silent or speaking up against someone in power, even when it felt scary? What gave you the courage to take that first step towards seeking justice? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about times when you discovered inner strength you didn't know you had. If this story resonated with you or reminded you of the importance of standing up for what's right, please hit the like button to show your support. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about real people finding the courage to fight back against injustice, and share this video with anyone who might need a reminder that they're stronger than they think. Thank you for listening to my journey from humiliation to justice. Remember, sometimes the most challenging moments in our lives become the foundation for discovering who we're truly meant to be. Stay strong, stay brave, and never let anyone convince you that you don't deserve what you've rightfully earned.